Hey, Mike.
Hey,
How are you?
doing great.
You know,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
considering.
yeah,
But yeah.
I'm doing pandemic well.
Yeah, pandemic. Well, it's good to be here with you, though.
I feel like what people can't see on the screen is how far apart we are right now. Do you remember that scene in Batman? I think it was the one with Michael Keaton, where Lucius Fox, who was Morgan Freeman, and Bruce Wayne, Michael Keaton, Batman, are sitting at the table eating dinner, and they're like 20 feet apart. That's sort
Feels
of
a little bit like this.
That's what this feels like.
Yeah, I don't know what it looks like on camera, but we're awkwardly far
We
apart.
are awkwardly far apart for a podcast.
So here we go.
So good to see you. We are talking through different topics that I think are just really relevant to my life, yours, anybody who's paying attention right now in this pandemic. We've talked about marriage. We've talked about grief. Today, I want to talk about what, for me and a lot of people I know, are really, really struggling with. And we overlook it because it's so obvious and it's a function of life that we think should just happen. But it's sleep.
Yeah, cool.
And
It's probably our most practical. This is going to be like our most practical conversation because I actually think if you're not having trouble sleeping right now, I'd be shocked.
yeah, I have had the craziest dreams. Like last night I was in a hotel and like there was like something
In
bad.
in your dream.
In my dream.
Okay.
No, I was at the hotel shut down, but I broke into a Yes, I was in my dream in a hotel and something bad was happening and I was trying to get out and I couldn't. And I woke up and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning and then the dog was puking in the corner. I don't know if that had anything to do with like
In real life.
In real life, the dog was
Okay.
puking in the corner. So, but the dream, the mental games when I'm up of how in the world is tomorrow going to look and how long is this going to go is, I know you've spent a lot of time and you've done a lot of, you've covered this before on Fun Therapy, but when it comes to, you know, how would you counsel me to sleep at night right now, or anybody whose the nighttime has become just brutal?
Yeah, it's so interesting because sleep has been such a disciplined part of my life. I really, if there's kind of 2 things that I would tell people in terms of having good mental health, a good sort of centeredness in your day. You need to stay hydrated, well-fed, and then good sleep. And the fact that I had a routine, you know, I go to bed at 9 o'clock, wake up, you know, about 5:45, 6 o'clock. I slept like a baby. And then this COVID thing hit, and I am so discombobulated. How about that for a word? Discombobulated around sleep. I'm waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning, just wide awake.
Yeah.
Going to bed at 11 versus 9, sometimes 10. It's so weird. And I've been talking to people too about their dreams. By the way, I had a dream a couple nights ago that I was on the beach and being hit by a huge tidal wave, like this 100-foot wave. I wonder what that's all about.
Yeah, that's not relevant.
That's not relevant. But I think if anybody would go like, yeah, in terms of a felt need right now, sleep is a huge one. And so kind of a couple of things to think about when it comes to our sleep and the reason why we're not getting sleep is really it's an expression of the stress and anxiety that we are feeling during this season. Definitely, and that doesn't take a rocket science to go like, maybe it has something to do with what I'm experiencing, what we're experiencing as a society, that sleep and stress are connected. And really what's happening kind of at a scientific body level is that your body is over adrenalized and is releasing cortisol. And both of those chemicals are going to make sleep very difficult. So in many ways, this is a physiological response to the stress that we're feeling in our day. Stress about the kids, stress about work, stress about money, whatever the stresses are, stress about, you know, when are we going to be able to get back to normal? All that stress is being held in the body. And then so when you go to bed, you're over adrenalized and you have too much cortisol, and cortisol is going to wake you up. It's really in the morning, your body starts releasing cortisol, which is actually part
the
of
stress.
it's cortisol is stress related, but a natural sort of flow of cortisol would say in the morning your body starts releasing it to wake you up at a normal level. But if you have too much cortisol because of stress, then you're going to get into problems and your body's going to be awakened because of the chemicals that are floating around in your body. So
yeah.
definitely a connection there. And so we have to get really strategic and really smart about how we approach sleep now, because you do have some important factors that are working against a good night's sleep.
Yeah. So if I want to be sleeping soundly between 11 and 6:30 a.m., what do I need to be doing at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 11 o'clock in the morning to prepare myself and my body? Because it's sort of like sleep it's overlooked, but it's God's design. It's like a daily Sabbath that you have to take to recover and prepare for the next wave of work that's in front of you.
Well, sleep is I always think of it like our brains, our minds are like a computer, and when we go to sleep, again, God's design, it sort of defragments the computer. It takes all of our thoughts and all of our experiences from the day, and it sort of sorts things, which is sometimes why our dreams get connected to things that have happened during the day, because your brain is literally sorting information, clearing things out, sweeping things away, defragmenting the system so you can feel refreshed and ready to go in the morning. Beautiful design, important design. Yeah. But to your question, hey, I go to bed at 11, wake up at 6:30. What can I do to prepare for that? And I think just that thought is probably the most important thought, to say that good sleep doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us are like, oh, just throw myself in.
It used to.
It used to. But not with adrenaline and cortisol and stress and worry and kids making a lot of noise in the evenings. Like, my daughter's up till 2 o'clock in the morning making cereal. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, can you be quieter down there?
Cereal.
Yeah, and well, she's a teenager.
What else do you do right now?
Totally. And so there's a lot of factors that we have to prepare for. And so I think the first thing that you said is figure out what your schedule and your preferred schedule for sleep is, because you actually have to, as best as you can, get on a schedule. It's incredibly important. So like you deciding 11:30 is my time, you need to be working towards that consistency of 11:30 and then waking up at 6:30. Not sleeping until 8 or, not that, I'm sure you got a lot of things going on.
I woke up at, about noon today.
Crack of noon, But really that habit trains your body, gets your body into a new cycle. I think the other thing that I would say is we have to be very aware of the impact of light on our sleep. And what I mean by that is, as you start probably an hour and a half away from your bedtime, whatever that is, we want to start limiting the light. Again, sleep is so much about our bodies and physiology, but if the body is around a lot of light, and honestly, light from a screen, our cell phones, computers, TV, all of that is stimulation for the body that says, we're not going to sleep, it's bright.
Okay. You've been staring at an LCD screen.
Exactly. That is
at
not
10:59, and then you put your head on the pillow at 11.
Yeah, your body's like, no, I need more time than that. So again, an hour and a half before, we want to start dimming things, getting things darker. One of the things that we do in our bedroom is we have our lights on a dimmer switch. And this is a big argument, by the way, in our marriage, because my wife likes the lights to be on full blast. I'm like, no, I'm preparing for my sleep. And so I'll be dimming them I'll get up, I'll dim a little more, and then dim a little more until finally it's really dim. She's like, I'm trying to read here. I'm like, well, sorry, we're getting ready for bed. And so dimming lights. I also encourage people to have a digital sunset. And that's really the idea of disconnecting from technology.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, there's a certain time, and I always say, like, usually takes about an hour and a half for your body to get ready for good sleep.
Yeah.
So we want to start some of these practices, digital sunset, dimming the lights. A digital sunset is really just saying, hey, I'm disconnecting from social media, Twitter, Facebook,
Tiger King.
Whatever it is, and I'm starting to wind down, allow my body to begin resting.
Yeah.
Because again, we're talking about adrenaline and cortisol, especially adrenaline. If you're watching some exciting movie or you're watching, you're getting ramped up by the politics of the day and you're scrolling through something, again, that's your body is going to be responding to that, and it's not going to respond like, hey, let's go to bed. It's going to be like, let's get to action. And so digital sunsets and dimming the light is a like really practical, simple things that we can start doing. And then of course, habit, routine in terms of what is our bedtime and what is our wake up time.
So we're not just victims to, well, I used to sleep, now I don't because of COVID-19.
Right.
We can get on the offensive here and start having a plan and a strategy in place. I mean, there's like a spirituality to sleep. I mean, there really is.
I agree.
And I have to have, in the same way, a spiritual discipline in place for prayer, anything, if I want my day to be healthy.
Yes.
I can't be putting junk in my mind all day and then expect my thought life's going to be. I have to have some kind of strategy in place and start going on the offensive. And
it's a way to care for what God created. Like your body is really important.
Yeah.
And your body is under a lot of pressure right now. That's the thing that I think we don't necessarily understand. We maybe realize our thoughts and our thinking is stressed and feels overwhelmed, and we got all these kind of storylines in our head about fear and what have you. And we think it's just kind of a brain thing. But your body is carrying all of the same stuff. And so like a spiritual practice of caring for something that God created, that God loves, that he designed, seems to me like a good practice of spirituality to say like, I'm going to create some practices to make sure that sleep is important and it's a priority.
You recommended a book to me probably a year or two ago called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes, one of my favorite books ever.
And it's
Next to the Bible, of course. Goes Bible, Body Keeps the Score.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I am a man of the cloth. But the book really talks about this idea that the body is keeping a record of trauma, stress, and that you have to have systems in place to release, whether it's talk therapy, but you have to. One of the things that was so helpful in that book, and you talked about this, was human beings are the only creatures that don't have a mechanism to release stress. Like if a storm's coming, you see horses and they're kicking.
Yep.
But humans, we carry it. We internalize and we carry it. And I think part of what's happening right now, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, everybody's experiencing trauma at the same time. And at night, without having any, it's like the Instapot, when you release that valve, it's like, shh, nobody's doing that. So what's happening at night is like the valve, and we're waking up at 2:00 in the morning, and
So
our
great.
body has been carrying that all day.
Yes.
What are some ways throughout the course of the day we can be releasing the valve so that at night our mind, our body is settling into the rhythm it needs to?
Well, it's one of the things that everyone's been telling us to do, right? Go for walks.
Go for walks, yeah.
Exercise. Now, listen, I don't think extreme exercise is good for this season. I don't think, extreme exercise right before bed is a good idea. But in terms of preparation through our day to help release some of the stress that our body is carrying, the way that we do that is we engage the body in activity. And again, think about just the basic, your motion. I have an Apple Watch, you have an Apple Watch, it like tracks kind of our activity. I'm shocked how low my activity is during the day now. Because I'm not walking to the store or walking to this or, doing some stairs at the office. It's like all of a sudden we are pretty sedentary.
Yeah.
And so we've got to, again, find some ways to be putting our body under physical stress, but not extreme physical stress, but physical stress so we can actually release some of that internal tension. And, light weights or taking a little walk around the block, doing some jumping jacks in the house. Again, this is stuff that we want to be doing during the day, not at night. That will,
Yeah.
we're not trying to get adrenaline going. We're not trying to ramp the body up, but these kinds of activities will be really helpful to allow the body to release, that pressure that is built up.
Yeah, I've noticed the days where I go to the garage and I have like a time where I work out, like full Ivan Drago, like in the garage. I sleep better.
Yeah.
It releases, and having some things in place that do that, and just how I'm thinking about cortisol, how I'm thinking about stress, how I'm thinking about all that all day long. It is because no one's functioning well without sleep. If I don't get 7.5 hours, the day's not going incredibly well. Like
I agree.
if I'm in the 5s, I'm gonna be, how many cups of coffee am I in? Everything becomes foggy.
Well, it's kind of a downward spiral, right? Because you lose sleep, and then all of a sudden you're stimulating with coffee or caffeine or trying to override the lack of sleep, and then it just becomes
horrible.
this vicious cycle. Or we believe, like, a big fallacy in sleep is, I won't sleep during the week, and then I'll catch up on the weekend. It's a fallacy. You cannot catch up on sleep. You just have to be disciplined in terms of the sleep that you get for that day is the sleep that you get.
Yeah.
And we got to be, again, very strategic so we're not over caffeinating the next day or running kind of in a fog. I mean, I'll tell you, like, you shave an hour or two off your normal amount of sleep that you need, you are compromised.
Yeah, you're
you
compromised.
just are.
It's the equivalent of like, what we'll do is say, oh, I didn't sleep, so I'll drink more coffee, more Red Bull, whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
And it's the equivalent of, I didn't shower today, I'll spray more deodorant on myself. It's like, no, that's not going to work. It's not going to take the place. I did shower today, by the way. But the systems we have all day long are what allow us to sleep, if I'm hearing you correctly. And we have to be very, very strategic in ways that we've never been before, because if you're like most people, you haven't had to think about it that much. You just lay down, you go to sleep.
And here's, we've probably have talked about this in every episode, the idea of showing ourselves a little grace and kindness too. Because what you don't want, this is the worst thing that you can do when you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning. And that's what's happening to me right now. I'm waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I never used to happen. And so the worst thing that I can do when I wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning is think about how I'm not sleeping. Start playing the day events of the news cycle in my head. The body waking up is actually a pretty normal thing for us to be stirred around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. In fact, in the olden days, fascinating thing. Back in and let's call it the 1800s, people would have their sleep cycle. They'd wake up, and they would actually go about and do something like at 2 o'clock in the morning, where they would go down to the bar, or they would go for a walk. They would literally have these moments that they knew that their body would wake up, and so they would do something, read a book, and then they would go back to sleep. So the idea of us waking up is pretty normal in terms of the rhythm. The problem is, what we don't want to do is wake up. Now, listen, nobody's going to go anywhere. You can't go to Denny's at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I don't suggest that. I'm just saying that's what used to happen. And so the normalcy of waking up, at 2 or 3 is pretty typical. But what you don't want to do is start thinking about how you're not sleeping and starting to stress about not sleeping. A lot of people do sleep apps and measure sleeping. I think that's a bad idea, because that's just
now you're stressed.
Now you're stressed about your goals of sleeping.
Totally.
And you're measuring all this stuff. And so, as best as you can, just give yourself some grace and know that this is very normal, but you can do some basic practices that will help you sleep better at night.
I have a friend, he talks about waking up pretty regularly, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and he knows it's anxiety knocking at his door. And I think for a lot of people right now, that's true. And he says, I I've gotten where I used to rise up and try to fight it. He says, but now I just let it speak. And he's almost taunting it, like, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and try to fight this, talk this down. I'm going to let it run its course. And it may take 20 minutes, 45, an hour.
Yes.
But I'm going to kind of laugh in its face and say, dude, yeah, this is your hour, fine. And, there's been several times where I've used that tactic to put myself at ease to say, oh, yeah, this is that thing. Instead of, I've got to be up at 6:30. I got to, welcome it, sit with it for a few moments, hour, let it do what it does, as opposed to turning all the engines on to try to fire a laser.
Something. Yeah. I think, again, that whole 1800s story, it's like the key here is not to try to fight it, resist it, get in an argument with anxiety, but there is a sense of like, I'll welcome it, it's here, it's pretty normal. Another thing that I find helpful when I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning is I just take some deep breaths. I just begin to, I honor the fact that my body is tight and stressed, and there's a lot going on. I'm just kind of, okay, if I'm going to be up right now, I'm not going to engage my mind in all the stuff that's just going to get me lit up.
Yeah.
I'm going to engage in something that I could care, like, oh, I see that you're stressed, Mike. And I'm going to take some deep breaths. I'm going to try to care for myself in that moment versus fight or judge or get down on myself or like, being out of routine and start thinking about what tomorrow morning is going to look like and how tired I'm going to be. It's like resting into it, knowing that, God is with us. He's taking care of us. There is ideals that we want to shoot for, but if we don't hit those ideals, lots of grace.
Yeah, no, that's so helpful. Mike, thank you for imparting some wisdom. I'm going to take this home and try this tonight. I will let you know how it goes.
Let me know how it goes. I'll let you know if I keep having dreams of tidal waves crashing over me.
I look forward to seeing what my dream is tonight. When I was in seminary, I took a class on spiritual development, and one of the things they had us do was keep a journal next to our bed and write our dreams down, and then you can access some of your thoughts through that. And I have reclaimed that practice of
wonderful
trying to discern and understand what God might be revealing to me about my own emotion and state right now. So that's another helpful thing.
I love it.
All right. Thanks, Mike.